Hello everyone, welcome. I think if everyone wants to put their headphones on, they're on their seat, it will be easier to hear us. Testing. Cool, well we'll kick off. We're here for, we'll be talking for about 20 minutes with each other about how to entice consumers in the fashion landscape, changing fashion landscape, and then we'll have about 5 minutes for questions at the end, if anyone has any. But we can start with some introductions. My name is Mark. I am Director of Creative at Cream. We are a full-service ad agency based in East London. We call ourselves a people-centric agency, so we're all about identifying audiences for our clients and reaching them, influencing them. So fashion isn't the only sector we work in, but we do have lots of heritage in it, and we've worked with French Connection since, I think, 2017. And yeah, I'll let Emily introduce herself.
Hi everyone, welcome today. So I'm Emily. I head up the brand marketing side of things at French Connection and PR as well. I'm sure you're all aware of who French Connection are. So yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit more today around what we do from a brand marketing side at French Connection.
Cool. So to kick off, I thought, Emily, what would be great is just to hear what's the lay of the land for French Connection in e-commerce. What are your key revenue drivers, and have they changed over the last few years or not?
To be completely honest with you, no. Obviously we had COVID as a time, so things were slightly different during COVID times. However, generally, from a performance marketing perspective, all our channels are the same. So paid social, affiliates, paid search. We've invested more heavily recently in paid social from a budget perspective, and that's actually our biggest growth channel from a performance marketing perspective at the moment. As a brand, we're having a successful season so far, so we're actually plus 20% up in retail, and web between 25 and 30% up versus last year for the season. So it's kind of a nice position to be in, to sit here and say that we're actually doing really well as a brand. Something that we've focused on from a so I work closely with our head of e-commerce on ensuring what we do from a kind of brand side obviously supports what we do from a paid performance side. Something we have invested more in recently on paid social is social kind of awareness and reach focus campaigns to support what my counterpart does on the digital and kind of conversion side. And something else we've focused on more heavily again since COVID times is actually content affiliate partners. So working with the likes of Shilux and Who What Wear on actually content affiliates. So as a brand, we do kind of the commission, cashback sites and that kind of thing. But really our focus is less on that, and it's on more the content partnerships, which has in turn helped with our organic search and help with organic PR coverage as well.
Yeah, and I think something that I would love to talk about is, obviously we're at e-commerce expo, and a lot of what you see around here is focused on the bottom of the funnel activity, driving sales, helping the bottom line, but we can't really think about that without also thinking about brand activity, which is a lot of what we do together. Yeah. They affect each other and they complement each other.
Yeah.
I think over the last couple of years we've seen a lot of brands really struggle with that balance. How much should I be spending in brand? How much should I be spending in just mopping up sales? And a lot of people, I think, have found it by getting the balance wrong and looking too much at the bottom line because of COVID, cost of living, etc. A lot of the work that we do together when it comes to media planning, content, partnerships, is finding the sweet spot in the middle of the two. How can we create activity that supports the brand, attracts people to a fashion brand, and fashion is very visual. We have to make sure it's enticing, but doesn't lose sight of the bottom line. Thought we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think it's always a challenge, as Mark says, you know. My focus and for the team is very much on that kind of new business and new customer acquisition, and our kind of objectives and strategy play into that. Again, working with our e-commerce team who are about focusing on sales and conversion. So we have to work very closely together, and I think one doesn't essentially work without the other. And I know sometimes when budgets are challenged, that the first thing to go is kind of the brand marketing side. However, it's something at French Connection that we have kept up, and we've had to do that more recently. And I think it also depends on the type of product that you're selling. We obviously sell fashion and homeware products. They're very visual pieces and very visual products. people need to buy into the brand and buy into the product. Just seeing some kind of ads, whether it across social or various platforms, we don't find it that, people don't find it that engaging. I think having a balance, very much so, of the brand activity and offline events and offline experiential activity that we're seeing more of a demand for these days is really important. I work with our head of e-com to really kind of grow that side of things. And we've definitely seen more activity recently in terms of events. So we're out there doing a lot more events. We've invested this season with Cream in some out-of-home and outdoor activity. We did the same last season throughout regional locations to support where we have stores in those areas as well. And that had a direct positive impact on footfall. We could actually measure traffic going into that stores where we'd done outdoor activity, and we saw an increase over that time period. I think that is the challenging side of things now. Obviously with the offline activity becoming it's difficult to track, but we try and look at measurement as much as we can. And that's been really positives. And then, as I mentioned earlier, partnership-based activations and activity. We obviously have an influencer and content creator program and work on that strategy. And something that we have seen is, coupled with our in-house photography and in-house assets, the influencer side of things is actually performing better. So where we've used those assets for paid social campaigns and where we've used them within our emails, we've actually had better click-through rates and we've had better conversion. As a brand, we've kind of had to move on the journey, and it's sometimes difficult to kind of take everyone on board with you for that, but we're getting there, and we've had good success recently from that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it's about, even with brand activity, spotting where there's an interesting extension that can help to support e-commerce. So you mentioned what we've kind of done really recently, which is outdoor and fly posting, something that's quite guerrilla, very brand focused. And something we did as an extension was get a videographer on board, create some video content from that, so that it lived way beyond East London and West London where it happened, and I think to be used even at point of sale online.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's something that can go into paid and can have so much more reach and impact. So yeah, sometimes we can try and be all things to all people, brand and response at once.
Yeah, it's tough to balance both, but we try.
We try. And yeah, I guess something that's a really great story for you guys, French Connection, is that you're seeing a lot of strength in bricks and mortar retail. Again, not the primary focus of this event. But I think what that shows, particularly post-pandemic, is that people really want quality interactions with brands. And particularly when we think about fashion, they want to see how clothes are worn, how they fit, etc., etc. It's sometimes not simple making an online fashion purchase. So what work are you doing to kind of replicate that experience in store that people are loving in the digital space?
So just firstly, on the retail side of things, I know today's about e-com, but just to touch upon it, like I said, we are having a good season in retail, so we're plus 20% versus last year. And we have actually opened a few new stores recently. So we've had a couple of outlet store openings in York and at the O2. And then we've got 2 more new stores and potentially more opening over the next few months. One within Dublin, one within Manchester. So we are, as a brand, kind of really pushing the retail side as much as the e-com digital side, and kind of back out there with our store opening program again, which obviously over the COVID period did pause slightly. So that's a really exciting time for us. And in terms of bringing that kind of experience into the digital side, I think the most pertinent thing I can probably speak about that we've done recently during spring, summer and taken into this season is live shopping. So we actually worked with Smarts as a tech partner, and they basically have supported us to enable live streaming and instant shopping videos. So we film within our Duke Street flagship store. We've actually filmed our buyer and a content creator talking through the product, talking about that and trying to get that again through digital means, trying to showcase the customer in terms of the product details and the product benefits, which, as we said earlier, is difficult through digital means sometimes. And they've talked through that, and customers have been instantly able to shop that. without, for example, when we do things like that, Instagram Lives and on social, you then still have to go to a separate platform and the website to purchase. And that's been really successful for us this season and last season. So we're really happy with that. And customers can instantly ask for feedback, they can comment on the products, and they can instantly add to basket. And it's actually proven that during the time of the live shopping shows, our site conversion has been 3 times average to what it is outside of the live shopping periods. So yeah, it's been really positive for us. I think that's something that we definitely will take that strategy moving forward. And I know other brands have started to do things within that space as well. But it's been really, really good for us. And again, it's just merging. We're filming it in our store, but it's digital, so it's merging the two.
Yeah, I think there's a live shopping company on after us on this stage.
Oh yeah,
so
I didn't name drop them, sorry.
if people are interested in that, they can stick around. Yeah, it's a funny one in our office. I mean, a lot of our kind of Gen Z cohort in the office are amazed by live shopping, and what TikTok, I think, do a similar thing.
Well, yeah.
They think it's this new innovation, but for us, we grew up with like QVC, and actually we're seeing things come back around in the digital space that actually are kind of well established.
I think they say it's like the new modern cool version of QVC.
Yeah, definitely cooler. Definitely cool, especially French Connection live shopping. Cool. And yeah, I mean, the title of this talk is about change and what's changing with consumers in the fashion landscape. Obviously, consumer habits are changing fast. I mean, I started at Cream 8 years ago, and most of our media plans were really heavily print. Digital even was quite scary to some clients, but that's obviously extremely different now. And even since we started working with you guys in 2018, I mean, platforms like TikTok didn't exist in the same way, and we can't imagine a media landscape and an e-commerce landscape without partners like that, and they're productizing in such an interesting way. But I guess for you, that makes your role more challenging than ever.
Yeah.
So like, what's that like, and how are you adapting as a brand?
It can be challenging at times, and I think working within fashion and the fast-paced nature of the business, we just have to be really agile and adapt. We're relatively small teams at French Connection, which I think helps sometimes, challenging in other times, but helps a lot of the times that we can be really agile and reactive to any changes in strategy. For example, working with Cream during the pandemic, we invested heavily in Pinterest to support our homeware side of the business. So homeware, in comparison to fashion, is a smaller mix of overall business sales. However, everyone was shopping homeware during COVID and during the pandemic, and we really shifted our strategy to really capitalize on that and focus on homeware through Pinterest advertising. Since that, we've obviously continued that, and with a focus on fashion, but also, as Mark mentioned, particularly TikTok as well. We've invested in advertising on TikTok through Spark ads both last season and this season, and I see that going from strength to strength. And we mentioned earlier about TikTok Shop, and I think that's something that as a brand we will definitely look to do maybe next season and pick up on that as well. And I think it is difficult. Every day there's kind of a new trend and there's something different, but we just have to be on top of the trends within the industry and be as agile and kind of responsive as we can be. French Connection got taken over by new owners at the end of 2021, and something that they've done within the business that's helped sales and ultimate growth is introduce more entry-level price points as a brand. So we sit at the premium end of High Street, I'm sure you're all aware, and they've really brought in more entry-level price points in certain categories, which has in turn helped our business growth as well. And especially in the current climate, again, reacting cost of living crisis, and they really kind of recognize what needed to be done within the business. So we've not changed our overall pricing architecture, but we've just got more entry-level price points in certain categories, which we're seeing success from, especially as times are tough and people have got less disposable income to spend on categories such as fashion.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's interesting about your challenge that's kind of always been the case since we've worked with you is that your awareness is
high,
almost 100%.
Yeah.
Which hopefully everyone here is aware. So it's a really interesting challenge to be focusing kind of mid-funnel down on kind of pushing people to consider and convert when they know about the brand, and a lot of what we do is about changing perceptions of the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
The
We
price
have
perception.
such high awareness. Everyone's heard of French Connection, if not FC UK as well, from back in the day. And we've had to kind of work hard on what's the next stage to that, and it's about consideration and trying to improve where we are on the shopping list for customers. So we might have been kind of number 5, but trying to improve that, and we're now seen as second on their shopping list for kind of high street brands, and through kind of marketing, the pricing structure, it's helped to essentially improve that.
Yeah, and I think we haven't touched on it much, but you mentioned it earlier. A lot of what we do with you is our content partnerships with like the fashion publishers you mentioned, like Sheerluxe, Who What Wear, people who are very, very, very shoppable platforms and have that cult following. And I think, probably the main point of everything we do together is that fashion specifically can't really live off programmatic banners because it's very, very hard to create brand love through those kind of bottom of the funnel activations. So I think if everyone here is in roles focused on the bottom line in e-commerce, don't be scared of things that look a little bit more expensive on paper, but will actually, the top of the funnel feeds the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for those of you that do remember French Connection from many years ago, the brand was essentially built on advertising. You remember the FC UK adverts, and we were globally and invested millions in campaigns.
Kate Moss, for example.
Exactly. We had some great talent that modeled for the brand. And then the brand went through many, many changes over the years, and we're now kind of back out there investing more, and understanding the importance of that brand side, which helped the brand from where it was to still essentially have the high awareness today. We went through a period of not doing any brand activity, any form of advertising, and that essentially didn't help the brand, but now we've started to do that again. It's definitely having success. Like I said, we've seen it in the stats and the numbers. It's sometimes challenging to demonstrate that, but we work hard together on that, and we're seeing the success this season. So hopefully it continues. Really positive.
We're doing pretty well for time, so I think we could do some questions.
Right.
If anyone has any questions for us. Or not.
We'll be around after if
if anyone has any questions or anything they want to talk to us about that hasn't come up, please grab us afterwards. Oh, there's a question here. I think there's a microphone coming round.
So my name is Yvonne. I'm a business owner. I'm into fashion as well. Obviously, I just started. So what advice would you give for someone starting like me, or for others as well?
Okay, advice for a new fashion brand?
Advice for
someone who's starting a new fashion brand, is that right? Yeah.
What advice would I give? I'm trying to think back to kind of the early days and when I kind of started. I think, as we've said, probably social is key. It's not surprising, nothing revolutionary to hear, but I think from my side, what I'd said we've done from paid social, but from an organic social following, trying to build up that organic following will really help. And then at a later date, when budgets are kind of larger, then obviously investing in that side of things. And I'm trying to think what else.
I mean, from my perspective, I would say before you get bogged down in details and ad channels, get to know your audience and who you want to reach and exactly what makes them tick. Like, I'm sure you're laying a lot of groundwork for the brand and what you want it to be. But I think, we sometimes work with really established clients who you would think would have really extensive audience profiles and they know exactly who their consumer is, but sometimes it's massively overlooked. And I think if you can put a lot of work into that stage, then everything else will flow quite naturally, and you'll understand who they are, where they spend their time, and therefore what you can do to kind of grow with that group of people.
We've done some work on that as well. I think when we first started working with Cream, we did a lot of that in terms of audience and who were we actually targeting and who were we wanting to go after. And then I think, organic growth. And then obviously later can come the bigger brand pieces that I've spoken about. Now we're investing in outdoor and that kind of thing.
Organic growth's interesting as well, because actually the people you end up attracting may not be who you thought they would be.
True.
So you can also get to know them, learn a bit about a group you may not have been going after in the first place. So it's kind of twofold. Those are two completely contrasting answers. question.
Hi, my name is Shay. I know that your marketing strategy probably has to change with the times and what's going on, but do you have a general template or strategy when you're using your paid marketing, like a percentage goes to ads, a percentage goes to paid marketing for influencers? Just more or less, what would a formula look like season to season and then adapt accordingly?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier we're quite reactive at French Connection, and we change slightly as much as we can every season, pending the market. Obviously, increasing CPCs at the moment are making paid social more difficult, so you have to invest more in that, which is what we've had to do, but in turn it's helped driven the growth from a paid side. On a brand side, we're probably more reactive, and we're in a really great position that we each season also experiment, which is a great way to be. We've worked with Cream, for many years, but every season we've carried on any platforms that have been successful, but we've also tested new platforms and worked across new things as well, which I think has been really key. So I think not just applying exactly the same formula every season with marketing. There's only so many paid performance channels that you can operate on. So yes, they will always go, they will always run and always be there. We adjust the budgets each season pending success and obviously being reactive to how we're trading. But on the brand side of things, more my side, we're definitely more reactive, and we're definitely up for trying new things.
Yeah, and I mean, in the industry there are certain rules of thumb as well that I think a lot of agencies and planners work to. So for a lower consideration products like FMCG, you can have a higher balance in a higher response budget, so maybe that would be 40% of your budget.
Yeah.
For something with a longer consideration period, perhaps you need more brand support, so that's going to become a 30%. But I think what's interesting is that with social platforms like Instagram, TikTok launching so many products that are somewhere in the middle of the two, it can be harder to work with that. A lot of the time we'll put a load of Instagram budget in the response plan and then we're like, hang on a minute, there's actually a really beautiful big image. It's supporting the brand too. So I think it's not as clear cut as it used to be, where you have a massive billboard here and then direct mail over here.
And like I said earlier in one of our kind of points was actually utilising what was seen as traditional brand kind of social content, shall we say, utilising that across other platforms. We never used to do that as a brand, and it's always been kept separate, not just from a budget perspective, but a strategic perspective as well. However, now we've started to cross that over, and we've seen better success from it. I think when I joined the business 7 years ago, putting influencer content imagery within an email would have been kind of shut down, essentially. It just wasn't something that we did as a brand. It was all about brand campaign imagery and own assets, and now that has completely changed. Even for paid social, we use influencer assets as well. So yeah, it's been a learning curve, but I think we're in a good position because we've been able to experiment and test and trial different things, which I think is key. And that's the beauty of digital, being able to adjust things each day if needed.
Hi.
Hi. As an extension of that, how do you go about measuring the online to store uplift? You mentioned a little bit about it at the beginning, that it was a
Sorry, I
challenge.
can't.
Can you have the
Sorry.
mic?
The uplift from online to store, like the uplift, the store uplift.
So do you mean in terms of where we've run specific offline activity?
Or online, both really, just to kind of figure out if you do
Yeah,
at home or online, can you sort of measure, how do you go about measuring that kind of
So what we've done, something we've done recently is more in terms of like single customer view. So we now work with Bloomreach basically across our stores and web. So all the data from a customer targeting perspective is all together. So that encapsulates basically ESP and CRM as well. So that's something that's been helpful as a brand since we launched that a few months ago. And from that then in terms of before analysis, but better actual targeting. And then since that, we just have to basically look at obviously digital sales and separate retail sales. What we have noticed is where we have unfortunately closed stores, for example, in certain areas, and as we're about to reopen new ones in the same area or in other areas in better locations, we actually saw a negative impact in terms of organic search, which is something that we really, the analysis is there. So where we have closed stores and where we don't have that kind of window advertising billboard space, which a store essentially is, that has had a negative impact on brand search and organic search within that area, which is really interesting.
Yeah, super interesting, and I think it comes back to that point of what brand activity can do to the bottom line, because what it does is creates trust.
Yeah.
If people have interactions with a brand that are in real life or in a bigger format, whatever it might be, they're going to be more trusting when they receive communications that are much more driving to check out basket.
But it is sometimes difficult to track everything, like I say, from an offline perspective, but we do what we can. There are metrics now, even billboards that have certain, metrics that you can track. So yeah, it's difficult, but we do what we can.
Oh, I think we've run out of time for the last question. I'm so sorry. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for
Thanks,
coming.
everyone.
I hope that was
Thank you.
interesting.
Thanks.